just got done making this adorable reading buddy for kids need to read, and now I'm going to show you how you can make a reading buddy. All you need for this is some leftover fabric. I'm using fleece for the body, and then just some scraps and 2 buttons for the eyes. Let's get started.
For this bear, we will have 4 pieces. We have the main body, the belly of the bear, a wide muzzle and medium nose. On the pattern, there are several options for the muzzles, bellies, and noses, and these are the ones I picked out for this particular bear.
We have our belly here. And it really doesn't matter exactly where you place the belly. I mean, you can measure, you want to put it in the middle, just above the seam allowance on the bottom of its legs there, but it can kind of be wherever. This doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You pin it like this. And then we have our muzzle and we have our medium nose. This is what this is. So it's going to end up looking like this, and then go right here with our 2 eyes right there. So this is going to be what the bear kind of looks like after all of this is added. But for now, what we're going to do is we actually will start by zigzagging this little nose onto this background. So you want to make sure, if you have a machine that can do zigzag, that it is adjusted for that at about the size that you want it to be. So for here, I'm on zigzag. I think that should be good. It doesn't hurt to test first, so to make sure you like your zigzag position. And once I have the foot down, I'm actually going to go ahead and take out this little pin for easy maneuvering. Now this one is going to be one of the harder ones to do because it is so small. So you do have to lift up the foot and kind of adjust as you go around the little nose here. And because this is so small, you might want to help your kids do this one. But depending on their age, they can do this. It can even be something where it could be hand sewn. Machine's a little bit easier because it kind of ensures it won't fall off, and it will look a little bit nicer for the end product. So when that needle is buried in the fabric, you can lift up the foot to adjust, which is what I'm doing here. And I'm still using the yellow thread because I want it to coordinate with the rest of the bear. But of course, if you wanted to, you could switch to black thread, which then wouldn't show up at all. But I think the zigzags will end up kind of looking cute. So I'm overlapping here a little bit on the other zigzags to kind of lock it in. And I will also tie a knot on the threads as well. So we have our little zigzag there. So it is actually locked in really well, so I'll tie a thread, or I'll tie a knot on the back, but for the front ones I will go ahead and just cut it. The reason I'm not super worried about these threads falling out is because there's not going to be any pressure on a seam that would have that. Alright, so before we zigzag this one onto the body, I'm going to go ahead and zigzag the belly of the bear on. We're going to do the exact same thing where we're going to zigzag through and overlap on the end. Alright, now we are going to place the muzzle with the nose on here. You can kind of place it wherever you want. I generally do it just so it kind of touches that belly there, but there's really no right or wrong way. I actually only put one pin through the middle to kind of hold it in place. but again, you can pin as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. And again, we are going to do a yellow zigzag to match the rest of them. We're going to line it up here and get started just like the other ones. This is a little bit tighter curve, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging than the belly, but it's going to be much easier than getting the nose on. My pin is getting a little bit in the way here, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out because I've already started those threads, so it's going to hold it in place. Alright, so we see we have threads on the front. You can cut them off, but that risks having it come unthreaded. So if you want to, you turn to the back. It's a little hard to see here, but you can pull the loop through from the front. So I've got to find it there, and I found my loop, so I'm pulling it through. So now I have two threads in the back that are next to each other that are very easy to knot from the back, so it doesn't have to look pretty. And then on the front, you have no strings loose. So if you want to do that, that's how you fix that. All right, so now we're going to sew the button on for the eyes. I can see I've already put the thread through the needle, but we still need to tie the knot. I like double thick my thread all the way through, then tying the knot on the end. What this allows is for the threads to be thicker, which makes it more secure for the eye. And for kids, it's also easier because the thread will not come off the needle if you pull it in an odd direction. So I know when I was learning to sew when I was younger, that was a super helpful way to do this. I'm getting this knotted here. Sometimes not so easy. Okay, so now I already have my knot. I'm going to start from the back. So both eyes are going to go on just a little bit above the muzzle there. Kind of line them up. So I'm going to start with the button on my right. I'm going to start from the back. So I'm just pushing it through here. It's coming through that bottom hole. You pull through. The knot's now caught. And there's two ways you can sew a button. You could go a cross stitch. So I can go from this one to this one, or you can go straight up. For these especially, I like going across. So I'm going to go into this hole. Now my thread for today is a little bit short, but it should be enough. So then on the back, I'm going to cross and do the bottom hole here. And then to make a cross, we're going to go to the top right hole. And then we're going to repeat this. So we're going to go to the bottom. Sometimes it takes a little bit poking around there. The bottom right to top left. And then the bottom left to top right. And this repeats until there is enough thread to secure the eye. All right, so we see here that this thread is now looking pretty thick, and I always kind of test it by pulling on it and there's no give. So I'm going to consider this perfect. And now to finish it off, I'm going to flip it over. And what I do in the back here is catch a little bit of fabric that's behind the button, so you won't be able to see it from the front of the bear. And then what I do in this is while I'm pulling it through, I make sure I catch the other side of the thread and then go ahead and knot it. That way it will stay secure. And then sometimes this one's getting a little short, so I am actually going to knot it in the old-fashioned way, so to speak. So I cut it off on very close to the needle. Go ahead and put my needle back so it doesn't stab anyone. And now here I have the 2 threads and I knot them like a usual thread. All right, now it's knotted. And we have our first eye done, and we'll repeat the exact same process on the second eye. All right, now that we have the front of the bear sewn on, we can sew the front and the back together. So it's really important to put the right sides of the fabric together. All right, now that the 2 right sides, or the sides we want on the outside of the bear, are together, we can begin pinning. So I like to pin at the parts that are most likely to shift. So that means at the ears, at the arms, legs, things like that. So you do want to keep all the edges lined up. How many pins you do is, again, completely up to you. Depends on how comfortable you feel about how much it is slipping. So if your young kid is doing this, I would suggest adding a few more pins than a more experienced seamstress. All right, so now that I have all my pins in, I actually want to make sure you leave one side of one of the legs open so you can eventually turn the bear inside out and stuff it. So I'm moving this pin to this direction to make sure that I leave this side open, and when I get to it on the sewing machine, I'll remember to leave that open. All right, so I am going to change it back to a straight stitch. I like these settings that come automatically with it when you switch it on my machine. Again, you can test it to make sure it's a good consistency of how long the stitches are. So I mentioned wanting to keep this side open, and the perfect way to do that is actually to start on one side of the stitch. So I'm going to start down here on the leg, and you want to at least go over it twice to make sure it holds strong. When you're stuffing a bear, I do actually like going over 3 times. So I'm going to start by backing up by pushing on this button. So we're going to back it up here a few stitches. When we're ready, we're going to go forward. And if you want, you can even go back another time. Like I said, I like doing that because you are going to be stuffing it. So with that being said, we can now start going around the leg. This is going to need some adjusting when that thing's buried. You can kind of go around the corner there. And now that we've gotten to the end, we can sew forward, back it up a few stitches. I'm going to go one more time. And there we have it. And it's sewn all the way around. Now we are going to turn this inside out. So this is why we left the hole. And just kind of start working it through. We want to be gentle on the thread so we don't rip anything out. This is also why we back stitched, to make sure we wouldn't. So I just kind of gently work the whole thing through. And what's really important on this is getting the ears, arms, and legs fully pushed out all the way to its end. So here we have our legs, and I'm going to push my fingers in here to make sure that the seams are all the way to the edge. Remember the first leg done, and then we do that with everything else as well. there we have the outside of the bear, and then I also will sometimes work it out on the outside, just like this, to kind of get those seams all the way to the edge. And the next step is stuffing it. So I have my stuffing bag right here. And the biggest trick with this is I put a little bit of stuffing in at a time, so I get about a handful. And then I have to work it through this hole, which can be the most challenging, but this is also one of the most fun. And depending on the age of your kids, if you have done most of the sewing, this is the perfect thing for them to do because it's just stuffing. There's no needles involved or any sewing details. Big tip here is to get this all the way to the edge of the arms, legs, and ears to make sure they are fluffy as well. Alright, so here we have enough stuffing, and we can always work it into the legs as we go, but there's enough in the body. Alright, the final step with our reading buddy is to sew this hole that we left open. Now this is going to be hand sewn because it's on the outside. I always start, so I have the thread here and the needle, actually on the inside. This way it will hide the knot in the tail of the thread. And now we can start. This is called a whip stitch. And what you're going to do is you're just going to catch both sides of this seam, just like this, and go all the way across. Now, as we're nearing the end, we want to make sure we go all the way to the edge. And now we're going to make sure we knot it. So I'm going to do one more, just like before, but this time I'm going to put the needle through the loop. So when it locks down, it locks it. And then I'm going to cut off the needle, put it back in its pin cushion. And our final step is to knot this thread. We're gonna do just a normal knot here to make sure it gets all the way to the edge. Now that it's double knotted there, we're going to cut off close to the ends. And we have our reading buddy complete.